Boring. Lame. Not funny. Been done. To Riddler. What? Harley? Oh, where the heck have you been,
Hello, all you folks out there in TV land. We've returned. We are the Geek Branch Podcast, and this is the Depths of Disorder. And today we're going to be diving into Harley Quinn. It's going to be me, your host, Dane, along with my co-hosts, Tim and Alex. And we're going to be talking not about the Harley Quinn movie, but about Harley Quinn, the character, who has a special role in my heart because I actually am a huge fan of her. She's actually one of my favorite female DC characters.
If you do want to watch about that, there will be a link in the description below
to another video in this podcast. But so what we're talking about specifically is the character of Harley Quinn in itself, from her inception in 1992 to her current day iteration, which we're seeing play out on the big screen now in 2020. It's been a long run for her, and I want to talk about the roughly decade-long period of her transitioning out of the animated series and into comics before she, of course, entered into the New 52 and entered into DC's Rebirth as far as the continuity rewrites as DC is always want to do. So when we first met her in Batman the Animated Series, which I think most people at this period of time have seen, despite it being like probably before they were born.
Years old?
Yeah, at this point.
Yeah, 1992 would be 28.
Yeah,
Wow, it's a year older than I am.
Yeah, right. Most people, it came out before most people
Came
were
out
born.
when I was born. When I was born.
Yeah. So as it goes, a lot of people aren't really familiar with it as we were because we came up watching it as kids. But I would always recommend it. It's probably one of the best cartoons ever as far as superheroes go.
I think it's more popular than you think.
Well, maybe. I mean, I don't know. But if you are familiar with it, that is when Harley Quinn came into existence as a character. She was created as a sidekick / love interest to Joker. And she played a really interesting role in the series as a kind of a goofy, lighter counterman, basically the Robin to Joker. And it was very unique because, well, she was really lovable. In fact, like, arguably, despite her being a villain, she was probably one of the most popular characters as far as likability across that entire series.
One thing that really helped was they showed different points to where there was more than meets the eye to Harley Quinn.
Yeah, like
there was
they
depth
slowly
to her
revealed
character.
her origin. You got to actually meet Harleen Quinzel.
Yeah.
You got to see her as a doctor, a psychiatrist specifically, and you didn't get the deep details on her backstory, but she wasn't a henchman. She was a fully fledged working character in this animated series. And she also had like a lot of claims to fame because she threw down throughout the animated series and even managed to beat Batman by herself, which is probably the most unexpected thing to have come out of that series. Like, when Poison Ivy did it, everyone was like, that's reasonable. Poison Ivy has a ridiculous amount of power.
Yes,
when
she
Harley
does.
Quinn did it, we're like, did you just lose to the Robin? Like, did you just lose to the sidekick? And like, what happened here?
That character is so memorable that they actually did a movie about a year or two ago set in the Bruce Timm Batman animated series universe
I need to watch
where
that one.
Batman teams up with Harley Quinn. And it's actually quite enjoyable, especially when Nightwing's the one that runs into her first and they end up knocking boots.
Yeah, it was weird. It was
yeah.
all types of weird.
Yes.
Not to mention, at least back then and in a few other roles that have been done with her, Tara Strong has almost always done her voice.
Yeah,
and
she
it's
wasn't the
always-
original voice actor though.
What, she wasn't the original?
No,
Not
I
for
thought
the animated series.
I thought she was.
Dude, that's a long time ago. Tara
Yeah.
Strong is not that
Fair
old.
enough. Fair
No,
enough.
she's been doing it almost as long. She started doing Powerpuff Girls. Powerpuff Girls was probably like 1996 or something. But yeah, I thought the same thing as well.
I have always known.
Like, I know her career hasn't been almost... it's about to be almost 30 years, but back then, I'm like, no, she wasn't around.
If our boy Matt was here, he would definitely know. Like, he's told me the name, like,
Several
on the
times
spot.
over.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah,
It is Arlene Sorkin.
Okay. Well, Tara Strong has been doing it for most of the time that they've done since, I guess, either she stopped doing it or whatever.
She has
She is the
been... Yeah, the last thing she's ever done with, let me see, with Harley is back in 2012 on DC Universe Online.
Okay. I will say then that, to me, Tara Strong has always had the iconic Harley voice.
She's done a very good job of replicating.
Recreating that.
But Tara's very good at that type of voice.
Yeah, that northeastern accent.
Yes.
With the high pitch.
But yeah. So what happens is that we all fell in love with the character, and a lot of times people point back to this as the very beginning as an iteration of showing the relationship between Joker and Harley as being toxic, and I actually agree. I know that seems like it's really strange. I'm normally the guy that's against that, because during the comic book run, basically from like 1993 to 2013, that didn't actually carry over from the animated series.
Right.
Because comic book writers have a little bit more finesse than, animated series
Joker
writers.
legitimately cared about her in the
comics
book
as
run.
we go through.
Yeah, I mean,
But-
there was probably comic runs where he was toxic, like the
But
animated
it
series.
really only crops up hard in the New 52 and Rebirth timelines.
Right.
Previous to that, actually, not much of an issue.
He legitimately loved her. That's why there's actually a very well-known comic graphic novel called Madly in Love, I believe, right?
Right, and that's also I think that's also the Alex Ross cover, and it's also what is pointed to in Suicide Squad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. But so what's important to recognize is that, yes, in the animated series, Joker is a really bad partner. Not
Yes.
only does he not care about her, very similar to what we see currently, as we watch Alan Tudyk's Joker in her own new animated series, or as anybody's going to see in probably Birds of Prey. That's actually similarly accurate to the old Joker, because that old Joker was just truly a villain, and
Yes.
he was also very, very narcissistic.
Yeah.
So there's the point where Harley gets the win over Batman, and I'm watching it long ago, and I'm thinking like, oh, Joker's gonna be so happy, because this was the most unexpected and most chaotic thing I have ever seen. This is like the pinnacle of insanity for Harley Quinn to have beaten Batman.
And he was upset.
Yeah, no. And then she gift wraps it, and it's just like, hey, Mr. J, Puddin', I got your prize. And I'm like, this is going to be an excellent moment. And as a kid, I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh, this is so cool. He's going to be so happy. I'm like literally expecting this to be like Joker's birthday.
And then he's mad.
And then he's mad, frees Batman, and hits her. And I was like, the Joker dropped so hard for me for so long after that scene. And
But it makes sense to me, because like that ruined the game for him.
well, no. It's fine. And later, of course, in a less, invested sense, I became like, okay, I can understand why he acted the way that he did. But he's an agent of chaos, and him not taking the win, but the thing that he created doing it,
Right.
felt like it was really poetic. I actually thought that was a cool thematic thing, that he
It
himself
just showed him being a bit of an abuser.
right, and being really narcissistic, which
Yeah.
is something that he's not actually. You know what I'm saying? Outside of his need to like be funny,
In the comic version, he's not so much. His primary goal is
he doesn't have a lot of self-interest. Is the
Yeah.
whole point behind it. Like, Joker doesn't care about how Joker appears.
He's
or how
obsessive
Joker-
over Batman.
Right. His view's always on the world around him, not internally. He's not.
That's why you don't like.
It's
the Joker
about how the
new
world,
series.
yeah, the Batman, the way the world runs, like how it ticks, and the way that Batman is the polar opposite of him,
Like, to
and
give-
how much it interests him.
To
Right.
give you an
He's always looking outward.
Yeah.
To give you an example from the new series, Harley has joined the Legion of Doom at this point, and Joker literally, they're having a board meeting. It's literally Joker's asking, "I want a giant tower with my face on it," and everybody's like, "But why?" "Because I do," and they do end up shutting him down because Harley says something about it, and Luthor's like, she's right, so we're not gonna do it. And at that point, of course, Joker then does a revenge thing. But yeah, that Joker is very much not like the old Joker of
Right.
Comic books.
Well, Joker has never been, in my personal opinion, narcissistic or selfish.
yeah.
Right.
I mean, when he first was created, he could have been viewed that way.
Well, the clown,
Yeah.
way back then, even like when Cesar Romero reprising the role, Joker himself, like the only Joker that I think of as selfish and narcissistic is Jack Nicholson's Joker.
Well,
the
that's because
crime
he's a
lord.
gangster
Yeah,
crime
yeah,
lord.
yeah, the crime lord, and like that also like is replicated in other crime lords in the DC universe, like Falcone and like Black Mask.
Yeah.
But other than that, because that's just the writing of the time, Joker himself has never been selfish. In fact, Joker will go out of his way to set things up that put himself in danger.
The Dark Knight is a perfect example of that.
Right, where he's willing to take all of these risks at his own expense and harm. Like, if you look at it with Heath Ledger's Joker. Like,
That's what I just said.
Yeah, I'm saying, I'm sorry. I thought you were referring to the comic.
No,
Yeah.
the movie The Dark Knight.
Yeah, right. Where he burns all of the money and puts
Not
himself...
the one where he's on a talk show.
Right. But what being is, like, all this leads towards that Joker being very, very different from the one that I, had come to know.
Right.
And so I did not like that. In fact, that's one of the biggest, like, negatives about the animated series to me, is that Joker had such a horrible relationship with Harley, and also played out that one
who's
scene.
on your mind.
Yeah, played out that one scene in such a way. So we go into the comics, though, and then we finally get her introduced into the comics about a year later, 1993, but really taking a strong role in No Man's Land, which is one of my favorite Batman comic runs. She was also in Thrill Killer, I want to say it's Thrill Killer, which I think is 1997. It's a really jokey name. I just don't know the way of describing it. But when you finally get to that Harley Quinn's really unique. And a lot of people, of course, haven't read the comics from way back when, and obviously didn't get a chance to view this Harley Quinn. But the thing about that Harley Quinn that's really super interesting is that she was more violent than Joker.
Yep.
Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, Harley Quinn, in the oldest iteration of her...
Unhinged.
Well, not only that, but she was just more willing to do damage than Joker was. Because in Joker's run during this time frame, the thing that Joker cared more about was, like, metaphysical things. He was a high-concept man. The man was focused on the world as a whole. He was very abstract.
Like the Joker from the Dark Knight movie.
Right. Where he seems to be above it all and only cares about generating as much chaos as possible. And sometimes the way of doing that isn't just killing someone, it's causing things to occur. Joker used to plot a lot more, is the best way of thinking about it. He wasn't spontaneous action as much as he only was spontaneous when the situation he was directly involved in, right? So, like, maybe when
he's very spontaneous, I feel like, in the newer comics, like Death in a Family and stuff like that.
Where he's doing random things immediately, but he only tended to be random when Batman showed up. Like, when he's confronted is when he's at his most random.
Yeah.
Before, he could walk into a police
Chaotic.
station. Yeah. He could walk into a police station and not kill any cops, right? Batman shows up, and then all of a sudden he reaches into a cop's holster, pulls out the gun, and then shoots the cop. And we're like, what's with that random act of violence? Well, he only did it because he wants to trigger Batman. Other than that, Joker can go about his daily life without killing anyone.
Yeah, because he wants to prove a point with Batman.
Right. He's about manipulating. He's about setting up this grander, division between human nature as a Batman represents it, as he represents it. Harley did not have any of these qualms. Harley was more likely to kill a minion than Joker was. Harley was super, super, super violent, which I guess is what you're seeing now in Birds of Prey. But it's taking away a lot from her character as opposed to what it was back in the day, because despite her being this way, she was like Catwoman in that she was also very compassionate and also very emotional. And so what you got with her was that there were very strong scenes and times in her arcs and as she appeared in Joker's plots where, despite her being more than willing to hurt the people around her as well as to hurt people she's dealing with, she would take the time out to build emotional connections, to build relationships. For instance, there comes a point in the older comics where where Poison Ivy has Batman like vine wrapped to a statue, and Poison Ivy is about to kill Batman.
Yeah.
And the person who saves Batman in this situation is Harley Quinn. Right? And she has a multitude of reasons for doing it. Right?
Yeah.
She knows that she feels like this is where Batman deserves to die. She doesn't want Poison Ivy to kill Batman. She also doesn't want Batman to die because she knows that Batman dying removes him from Joker's life, and that would hurt the Joker. Like, she has a lot of reasons for why she decided to do so, but it doesn't change the fact that out of compassion, she saved Batman's life.
Yeah.
And she's also done that for all types of things. Like, the reason why the hyenas have become a thing was because she actually had a thing for animals. You know what I'm saying? Long before the hyenas actually appeared, she was the type of person that wouldn't hurt a dog or a cat.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Like, and you go into her backstory and you discover that her family is incredibly dysfunctional. And that's also the reason why she's different from the Joker. Whatever happened to make the Joker who he is, no one knows. Right? We never got a definitive Joker origin story. And so we can't know if anything the Joker does is a result of what happened in his past, exacerbated by the dip in Ace chemicals. But we directly get to see Harley Quinn get fleshed out. She became a psychiatrist because she was trying to figure out why her own family was so dysfunctional. Yeah. And once she started studying the criminal mind and got into Arkham Asylum and then discovered the Joker, she transitioned out of trying to figure out why her past was so muddled and so chaotic and so dysfunctional, and instead became more invested in finding a future for herself and fell in love with the Joker because of it. Because when she explained her old backstory to the Joker, because that's something that she managed to do, she exchanged her entire life story for whatever the Joker told her, which to this day we still don't know. No one actually knows what the Joker told Harley Quinn when they were in therapy together. Which she might be the only person who actually knows his actual backstory. The actual true one could be the one that he told her. But whatever it was enough for her to both accept everything that he had told her and for him to accept everything she had told him, and then for that to form a relationship. And that's how Harley Quinn came into existence. And you took all of that and then you dipped it in crazy by throwing her into the vat of chemicals like he did.
Yep.
And so what you get is this really unique, fully fledged character with so many layers to her, and there are entire story arcs that run through this period, like her and the Joker having a kid was something that occurred. It's an Elseworld story, but it's also really cool to see. You also get to see her form up with the Gotham City Sirens and completely run off and do things by herself or away from the Joker with other heroes, including building this friendship with Poison Ivy and a sort of rivalry with Catwoman. And all of this occurs all while her relationship with Joker is maintained. And that's something that never actually gets confronted. Like, because there's nothing wrong besides the fact they're both a bunch of murderous psychopaths. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with her relationship during this period. And then we transition into New 52 and Rebirth, where all of a sudden, now this entire dynamic is unacceptable. Yep. Where we have to point out that apparently the Joker from the animated series, which is not the Joker in the comics and has never been the Joker in the comics, though they're two separate entities, because that Joker is built for what he was built for in the animated series. He was a character before the animated series. He's a character after the animated series. The animated series is not a reboot of Joker's character.
Yeah. Right.
So one would never suspect that Joker acted the same way that Joker in the animated series did across 10 years of comics. And we get to, as readers, know he didn't. But Rebirth makes it so that 1992's Joker transitions directly from that series to Rebirth. He is very much so that Joker.
Well, they've also been doing this whole thing where they're saying that there's a possibility of 3 different versions of him that have lived across the existence of the DC universe.
Right. I said Rebirth, but I meant New 52.
Yeah.
But
that was a Rebirth thing that popped up with Joker.
Yeah. So what happens is that Joker all of a sudden does a dynamic shift, right? Where not only is he slightly different in that he is now much more selfish and much more self-interested, but he's also like much more vindictive and much more personally active, right? He himself has become much more large and in charge, much more upfront, and much more willing to do grievous harm for not even any of the old reasons that he used to, but more so as if he's trying to make a point. And this is kind of the difference between like death in the family and death of the family.
Yeah.
Right? Where we get to see a Joker that directly confronted Batman with something that he couldn't deal with, which was the death of a Robin.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the point that was meant to prove was also amongst of other things like the hurting of Barbara Gordon and running Jim Gordon through the insanity wheel. That's
the
I was gonna say Last Laugh, but it's
The Killing
not.
Joke.
Killing Joke.
Yep.
Yeah.
that's the one where at the end Joker and Batman share a laugh.
Right, and Batman potentially chokes the Joker to death. But my point being is that the Joker that's transitioning during this time frame, as we continue on, has been directly pushing Batman to change. That's all that he wants, is that he wants to see if the thing that Batman is malleable. Can it be shaped into something different given these circumstances? He's working not against Batman personally, but about working against what Batman represents and who Batman is.
He also always thinks that all those people are just a distraction for Batman anyways.
Well, yes, and that's a thing. But he also understands that Batman isn't Batman without them. Right? That's something that he brings up as that resolves.
Yeah.
Is that like you'll see him joke about it occasionally, but it's like, what's Batman without a Robin? You know what I'm saying? Just an insane guy in a suit.
Hey, a recent storyline in the comics, I think it's a spinoff one. Him and Joker and Batman team up, and Joker says Robin.
Right.
Wait, hold on. I mean, there is the team up between him and Joker against the Bat Who Laughs, but
Yeah, there's a one from recently where he's
Okay.
wearing like some sort of
okay, then I don't know
suit,
that one.
Like, yeah.
like a
I
mech
don't know
suit,
that one then.
But-
maybe a
but-
Lex Luthor suit.
But yeah, so as it's running, just to put it out to you, that all the time this Joker has been attacking Batman at a higher level that's not just him personally. Like, sure, it hurt Batman to have lost Jason Todd, but the thing that he was trying to achieve there wasn't to make Batman mourn. He was trying to change fundamentally what Batman was and to see if that was possible. And he failed. And he recognizes his failure. And he almost pays the price for it when you get to the Red Hood arc. Because, once again, he almost gets killed.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, none of that worked out. And honestly, he looked as if he was never going to do it again. Because he had proved his point.
Yep.
To himself, he knew now Batman wouldn't change regardless of what he did to him.
Right.
But then you go into New 52 and Rebirth, and it's as if he's forgotten that.
Well, yeah, or it's a new Joker.
Or it's a new Joker, right? Or a Joker who hasn't proved this point, or a Joker who doesn't care to prove this point. Now he cares about personally hurting Batman,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? And so this Joker that appears that has this big personality change, not just doesn't just do that to Batman, he also does it to Harley. Because there comes a point where he brings Harley in and he's just like, let me tell you some fundamental truths here. You're not unique.
Yep.
You're not important. He even brings her to a warehouse full of dead Harley Quinns. And I'm like, are you telling me that the Harley Quinn that you're currently with isn't Harley Quinn?
It's a clone.
Right. No, I'm saying that like all of these ones somewhere in this warehouse is the original. And everything has been you just wiping out and replacing with some random chick. Like, is this actually Harley Quinn? Which, of course, they do later point out to you that, yes, okay, this is the real one. But then where did the warehouse of Harley Quinns go? Have you just been satisfying your need to kill her in this warehouse and letting the real one run around? Like, it completely changes everything about the character and
Just
the dynamic.
dressing someone up as her.
Right. And I'm like, are you... What's the answer to this? Did you feel the need to? I'm like, there's never been any indication that...
Are they clones of her? Or are they different?
Like, or
just
they
random
they
bystanders?
They could have been like prostitutes dressed up as her. I don't know.
Yeah.
But my point being is whatever this is, it's very weird, and I can't find a purpose for it other than hurt Harley Quinn.
He might be just trying to push her away from him.
Well, we've seen the resolution of all of this. This is old.
Yeah, well-
This is old at this point. There was no greater purpose to it. There was nothing like, oh, I'm afraid Batman's going to come back and murder me, so I'm just going to get you out of here.
Right.
There's none of that type of high-minded, heroic, things that you would do to actually protect someone that you love.
Right.
That
He does not love her.
No, that's the whole point. And not only that, but like, so of course she hits the road and is like, I'm out of here. She gets reinforcement from Poison Ivy then comes in and says, well, this is what your relationship has always been like, and this is what you've always been dealing with, and you don't need him. This is the beginning of the emancipation, really.
Yeah.
And then we run across another 10 years of this crap. And while this is all running, Joker just forgets she exists. No offense, but like, he makes no reference. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't go out and look for her.
Doesn't care.
He doesn't care. Like all of his plans, none of them involve her in any way. Like everything he does in New 52 and in Rebirth has nothing to do with Harley Quinn. All of a sudden, this one humanizing thing. Well, sorry, there are two humanizing things. Both of them disappear though. And they turn Joker into something that arguably
He's a monster.
Yeah, I really don't like because there's nothing about him. Well, not to say that there was ever anything redeemable, but there's nothing about him that's multifaceted now.
It's like the Joker movie we just saw. Even though we know he's a bad person, we're still invested in seeing his story.
As well as the fact that, like, that Joker, Arthur Fleck, as well as, like, the Joker we had previously, there were different sides to him. You know, we got to saw a Joker that thought it wasn't funny to kill babies after he killed Jim Gordon's wife.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, what is that? Like, is that remorse? Because things didn't go the way that you expected it. You no longer care about blowing up a building full of babies. Why? You know, that makes you question what's motivating him. Why is he like this? You want to know. You know what I'm saying?
Well, just for whatever reason, that made me think of the comic when they did Amalgam. And it's Red Skull and Joker are going to team up. And then he finds out Red Skull's a Nazi. And then he's like, I may be a psychotic maniac, but I'm an American psychotic maniac. Pulls a gun on Red Skull.
That's a very famous
scene. And so we always have wondered, like, okay, so, and then once again, his kindness and relationship to Harley throughout the comic book run. What is that?
Right.
Is that actually love? Does that qualify as that emotion? Or specifically, his infinite kindness towards the midget that's always been in Joker's crew?
Yep.
Like that midget had been in his crew for a long, long time. And that midget is the only minion that he never sends out into a situation where that midget can die.
And there's a particular Robin he's particularly more nice to than the rest of them, and that is the original.
Yeah. Despite there being, once again, in the animated universe, he like turns that Robin insane for Batman Beyond.
No, that's not the.
That's not that Robin.
No, it's Tim Drake.
That's Tim Drake.
Yeah, that was Tim Drake.
I thought that was originally.
Yeah, I thought that was.
That was Tim. I remember because Dick was just MIA. They just didn't have him in
because he I guess never appeared. I thought it was.
I was actually gonna bring that up at one point.
Nope, that's Tim Drake.
Okay. But regardless, yeah. So, but then again, like I said, he's never actually.
Because Tim Drake was the Robin when they updated the Batman animated universe when they got the new character designs. Tim Drake was the Robin at the time.
Okay, so we're good. No, it's a good little bit of tidbit of knowledge to pass on. Yeah. So when we're dealing with Robin, though, once again to bring this out, there hasn't really been a Joker that's ever wanted to just. Besides Jason Todd.
Of course, that was just to make a point.
Just to make a point. Other than that one instance, Joker normally isn't very threatening to Robin. If you go back and read the comics, there are not too many opportunities where Joker obviously could have used any of the prop weapons that he wanted to and killed this kid.
Or he really doesn't care to.
Right, because he
knows...
knows...
Of a nuisance to him.
Well, more importantly, he also knew that Robin was important to Batman.
Yeah.
And that at the time, he never thought about damaging that dynamic because it was just a part of who Batman was, and he didn't want that to go anywhere. And it wasn't until Batman himself chose to swap Robins that all of a sudden the idea popped into Joker's head. Do you need a Robin? Right. If you can change out your Robin, do you need one? It was also the result of that poll, by the way. So writers, of course, had to force that in, because Jason Todd's death was based on a poll, if everyone didn't know. And somebody, basically played the poll and tilted the vote so that Jason Todd was voted in to die. So that's how Jason Todd went out.
Someone cheated it?
Yeah, so the poll was cheated. No, I mean, it took time to realize afterwards, obviously, but the poll was basically cheated, and Jason Todd died because one person really just hated him. Not that Jason Todd was very likable to begin with.
Hey, the one that they would have picked if it was closer in modern time, especially when he first came around, it would have been Damien instead.
Yeah, right.
Poor kid.
Yeah, that kid
people really hated him at the beginning.
Yeah, just because he was just an X Factor, dude. He was arrogant as all hell, and no one knew he existed. You know what I'm saying?
And all of a sudden,
I'm Batman's son. I'm Robin. And he literally starts fighting Nightwing about it. And I'm like, no, son.
Take it down a notch.
Robin. That's Robin. You'll never get to take it. Like, regardless, we're gonna be okay with that. But anyway, so yeah, what happens here though is that those are things about Joker that allowed you to question his character, to allow you to see multiple facets of him, and one of the most important end all be all is Harley, and Harley and Joker together were something special that made both of their characters really unique, and that relationship super important. And it's not just because of Joker's existence that Harley is an important character. Harley, for a time, was independent of him, even back then, and maintained her relationship.
And he was totally okay with it.
Right, and maintained her relationship with him, and still stood out as a really unique and interesting character. And for every one of those moments that allowed you to question, okay, well, is there something redeemable here? Is there some part of Joker that's more than just this lunatic running around causing chaos?
Right.
Harley Quinn exemplified it. Harley Quinn was the better Joker during this time frame, because while she obviously couldn't reach the levels that Joker did as far as like causing chaos and moral interruptions, there was just that Harley Quinn also showed much more humanity than Joker, and she was a Joker whose backstory we got, a Joker whose character we understood, and a Joker that was unique from any other instance of Joker that we've ever seen. She really did play his role in a unique and different way. It's almost as if Joker, by creating her as a character and moving her into the comics, that the writers also just passed the mantle on for a time. I know it seems like it's kind of weird to say because Joker never left during any of this period, but it felt like there were two of them. And I really enjoyed that.
Well, it was like a married couple. Eventually, at one point, your personalities become similar to one another's.
Right. And so, like, that's something that I infinitely valued. And of the two of them, during that time period from like 1993 to like 2003, I actually preferred Harley.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm like, because Harley was the one that I could understand.
There had to be a reason why she was a popular character before New 52.
Right, and all of this stuff started rolling through. And it's just because...
Well, she's still a very popular character. There's a lot of people actually like this version of Harley.
Right, no, I'm not saying that she never dropped down. I'm just saying that she remained in the zeitgeist of our geek culture throughout these 10 years in various different ways, but she was a unique character and different, very much so different from the one that we have now.
Right.
It's like in the 20-year period that we're talking about, there's been a vast shift in who she is, and a lot of us greatly prefer the previous one. And in our previous video, I brought up that if you are the type of person that prefers the one from the earlier like half of her existence, you get maligned for it because the only thing that anyone ever remembers is the animated series.
It's also Facebook memes.
Yeah, I'm saying, but it's just, it's the anime. It's like I said, it's like if the animated series version of their relationship directly transitioned and deleted everything in between that was character building for her.
Right. Well, and, most general audiences and stuff, consumers don't read comic books, and so they just saw the animated series and they saw what was created via Facebook memes, where the memes like, you don't want to be like Joker and Harley, their relationship's toxic, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, right. And they throw out all of these examples from just like irrelevant.
Nick pitting different instances of when he was toxic based off of different creators and writers.
Right, but also
throughout the years.
It's like never really in that 10-year golden period for me. It's always New 52 or Rebirth.
Because
or
they were
the
trying to
animated
push
series
it to make her have her own thing.
Right, and I'm like, why?
They're trying to take him a new direction.
Right, but like, why not go? Like, we continue to have a Joker that refers back to his past. Like the Killing Joke never escapes Joker.
Yeah,
no matter which iteration.
Yeah, because that's such an important piece of
who he is. And like even to this day, when we're talking about something that's completely removed from him, which is the Joker movie, it still plays back to the Killing Joke. If I had to have a path, I'd rather it be multiple choice.
Right.
Like that thing has played through all of these years.
Well, the Harley Quinn show even has it to where it's like around the time that she gets out of jail is around the point of which he apparently made Barbara Gordon,
turned her into Oracle.
Oracle, yeah.
We're gonna put it in a positive light. Turned her into Oracle.
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it. If you haven't watched the somewhat okay animated movie of it, or actually read the really good comic, look it up.
Oh, if you're going to watch the animated movie, skip the first 30 minutes of it. Please, God. Please just skip the first 30 minutes of it. But
and that's why I said somewhat okay.
Yeah, skip the first 30 minutes. They should have never have done that. That was a horrible idea. But anyway, more importantly, back to Harley Quinn. So, that's been Harley Quinn's past. And I could have brought up some really specific instances from the comics, but then this video would be very long. We're trying not to be those people anymore. I'm just going to refer you to go back and read, at the very least, No Man's Land and...
That's a very popular Batman series.
Yeah, and Thrill Killer.
Even I know it. But
Yeah.
granted, that's because of HeroClix.
Yeah. But No Man's Land and Thrill Killer, I would recommend that those are the two that you go back and read for other perspectives on Harley Quinn. The Clown at Midnight's also a pretty good read. There's a lot of older,
Classics.
that show her actually as a more unique and more fleshed out character than she is currently today. I'm sorry.
If you're not one of those people that want to read it via illegally through those websites, or say you can't afford buying it and this and that, I'm not trying to advertise, but just use the DC Universe Online app. It has pretty much all those comic runs he just mentioned.
Right. And you can go back and read all of the classics.
Yeah.
And so for me, I feel like her currently and her going forward actually has lost a lot, going from what I consider to be the golden age of Harley Quinn.
Well, her comic series is like, it's not part of the mainline universe anyways.
Well, not only that, but she has like 4 series running.
Yeah.
And all of them make her seem less and less like Harley Quinn and more like Deadpool.
Well, yeah, and Deadpool has multiple series that he's been put in Marvel, and it's never good to put one character in too many series. It gets to where it's a fatigue. They did way too many series for Batman for a while many of us love Batman. You don't need to have to put him in that many series.
There's also the problem that the character becomes inconsistent across all of them.
Yes.
Like, different writers take things in different ways, and they're very much so different interpretations. And all of a sudden, the character that you know has become blurred across this.
Right. It's just like
continuity.
Marvel with Spider-Man. Spider-Man, for a while, there was I think 5 different series at
With
once.
5 different writers.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you're like, which one of these is Peter?
Whichever one Dan Slott didn't write.
All right. I'm just pointing out that you just get to that point where you're like, are these the same character?
Right. Yeah.
Like-
and it's just an issue of the comic book industry slowly dying, and they're banking in on their popular characters and oversaturating them.
And issuing out 15,000 different new number ones and a bunch of other stuff. But to go back to it and just to summarize so we can wrap up the video, I really like Harley Quinn. And for a period of time that was maybe like a decade of my life, I liked her more than the Joker. And the Joker is my favorite DC villain. And that is because she was unique. She was more violent. She was definitely more physical and more grounded than Joker was. She also had arguably more intelligence than he did, coming from her background as a psychiatrist. Like, no one could beat the Joker just because the Joker is nuts, and so trying to outthink him didn't really work out, just because, there's no such thing. It's like him versus the Riddler during the War of Jokes and Riddles. So it's like, doesn't matter how smart Riddler is, you're just not going to win here. Harley, on the other hand, was actually intelligent, and back in the day could actually go toe-to-toe with thinking versus Batman, which is something that the Joker actually can't claim to do. She was a type of Joker, and I actually think of her as like an archetype of the character himself that I liked more than the standard. And that's really unique, because I can't say that about anyone else. There isn't another version of Iron Man.
He was vanilla, she was cotton candy, flavored ice cream.
Right, but I'm saying, there isn't another version of Iron Man that I liked more than Iron Man. There isn't another version of Cap that I like more than Cap. There is no other character in the entire history, even like with Venom. I prefer Eddie Brock to Flash. There is an entire run across all these other characters where they've had different versions of themselves or have passed the torch. And I have never liked the character that comes after them more than the character that was the origin, except for Harley Quinn.
Right. Although I did actually enjoy Flash Thompson as Venom, but
A lot of people did. I'm just saying. But
Eddie
me
Brock was the
personally-
better between the two.
But me
he's
personally,
still a really good one.
I've always preferred the OGs as opposed to anything. Like, I prefer...
Harley Quinn's a rarity for you.
It's the unique one. The sole instance of a character I think of as passing the torch, and I think of Harley as a passing of the torch of Joker, and me liking the character that comes after. And that is so unique, and now it's gone.
Yep.
Now I can't say that Harley Quinn is actually my favorite DC villain, because she isn't anymore. It's gone back to being Joker.
It's a shame.
Right. And personally, I've always looked forward to a future where we get to see what ends up being the case between Harley and Joker. I've always wanted to see how their relationship plays out. I've always wanted to see what is the result. Maybe there could have been a little Joker versus Damian Wayne. And that could have been the future of like this conflict. I'm not saying that that's what everyone would have wanted. I'm just saying that what I wanted to see was there's 18 years of these characters that could have been here for me to enjoy, and I would have paid for it every step of the way, every issue. And it's not here now. And it's gone forever because this new Harley Quinn is never going back.
Nope.
It's
You ain't
not,
stopping me, baby.
No, it's ironic you say that because Damian tried to get Harley Quinn to be his nemesis,
right,
in the TV show.
I was just saying that, like, and then the time frame matches up. There's a time where Batman is unfortunately being molested by Talia al Ghul, where Joker and Harley could have potentially, popped out a little Joker.
Yep.
And I also really like Joker's daughter. That's another story for another day. Yeah, it's another story for another day. She's not actually Joker's daughter, but it could have been.
She creepy from the picture that I've seen.
Oh, no. The new one is a completely separate character. The one that's wearing his face. Yeah, that's a completely separate character. One that I like, but it's still very different. But to wrap that all up is that I mourn the loss of the character Harley Quinn used to be, and I just haven't come to accept the character that she currently is. And I want things to go back to the way they are, but I know that that's not possible. So I will spend my days reading back issues, enjoying the golden days. That's just me. This has been the depths of my disorder, and I appreciate you for running through it with me.
Oh, you don't say. You have who tied up where?
Well, nuts to you, Mr. Smarty Bat. When I told Mr. J what I was doing, he was so thrilled he could hardly speak.